Donald Trump, in his second term, is about to create, once again, the longest shutdown of the American government. It is not just the longest one. It is also the most dangerous and the most significant one. If you stay tuned, I want to explain to you why this one is different, why it's not just about being the longest one, but there are more things at stake in this government shutdown than any other shutdown before. So let's start with what's different now compared to what has happened in the past. Now, just for the record, we also must acknowledge that Donald Trump or the Republicans are not the only one dealing with government shutdowns. In 2013, Barack Obama had the same situation, as you guys can see on the videos, link for that on the description below. And the argument that Obama had is the same argument that Speaker Johnson has when he talks about this shutdown, that the United States of America is not an island. It is the world's largest superpower, and the American society, the American people, are more divided than ever in history. You can see that on Polarization. Social media, one line, one wrong word, and then you see the conflict arises. We are right now at a time of the worst polarization in the history of the United States of America. Maybe only second to the polarization that occurred on the Civil War when they have a conflict on slavery. And a lot of people believe the shutdown this time risks a possible civil war. Now, that's the internal problem. The Democrats believe they're winning, and they believe they can bring chaos and havoc. The reason why they're not coming to the table and not ending this one shutdown is because they want to use this to spread their hate on Donald Trump. Remember, they started calling Donald Trump years ago Hitler. That did not work. Now they're calling him fascist, and everyone who is MAGA, fascist. That did not work. And now they're making about no kings. And in my view, this echoes the French Revolution. And you guys remember how that one ends? They had a mantra, which was, we're gonna hang the last priest with the guts of the last king. Now, transfer that to today, we have signs and protests with the same language of the French Revolution. So that's the consequences on America internally in terms of social consequences. But there are also economical consequences. The Democrats are not realizing, but they are helping Donald Trump. People are realizing that the longer the shutdown remains, things still work. Things are still kind of fine for the average American. Now, imagine this. When you don't receive your salary for 2 or 3 months, as an individual, what do? You find out what is priority, what's important, what expenses can you cut down. And that's exactly how governments operate. Donald Trump does not have the means to pay every bill that has to come to him in America. Now he has to make a decision. What is priority and what's not priority? And maybe some people are going to get laid off and they're never going to come back because the government realized that those functions are not necessary. In the long term, that is very positive. That is shrinking the government, reducing the expense of government. And in my view, the Democratic Party are going to have the same problem that they had in the past. They push agendas that were too crazy, bringing too much chaos, and they lost the trust. What may happen to them is what happened in the past, where they lost famous actors and people who hold the Hall of Fame supporting them, musicians and actors. The same thing is going to happen now. People are going to realize that this is just something that they're using to polarize and to bring chaos. They push this incident to coincide with their protest of the No Kings. And it's all about naming Donald Trump a king or a dictator. Let's talk about the consequences outside the United States of America, how the globe, how Europe and the other countries are seeing this. We need to understand one thing. People may not realize this, but since Xi Jinping has been in power, no American president has taken any serious step towards blocking or saying to Xi Jinping that he's stretching too far. Xi Jinping, China, has a lot of tentacles all over South America, Central America, Latin America in general, and they are not accepting American influence on their land. Donald Trump is the first one to say, wait a minute, Xi Jinping, you are going too far. He's the first one challenging China with tariffs. He's the only one talking about the trade deficit. And even though I do not agree with the method, I have to agree with the outcome. I don't agree with the action of the Federal Reserve buying Argentinian pesos, but I do love the consequence. Also, I'm a bit concerned about the response that he gave to Vladimir Putin. Imagine this. Vladimir Putin used a missile that flew around the globe in a certain trajectory for over 10 hours and 8,000 miles. Now, according to him, and according to researchers, not Russian researchers, by the way, other researchers, this missile can fly for about a month. Now, let's say it cannot fly for a month. Let's just say it can fly for 2 or 3 days. 10% of what they're claiming. That sends a message that Russia, who is the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, have now the power to launch a missile anywhere on the globe. I call this the nuclear Sputnik moment. What was Sputnik? Was the American population realizing that Russia created this satellite that flew over their heads without them noticing or knowing the existence of it. The same message is now being sent with this missile. We can bomb anywhere in America, we can send a nuclear bomb. We are now on a time where people and leaders, globally speaking, are not afraid of a nuclear conflict. Now, the response that Donald Trump gave, we are also not playing games with him and leaving as that, projects a very serious response to Vladimir Putin, saying, if that's the game you want to play, we will play it. And you need to remember this. Donald Trump said this after pretty much destroying or putting the cherry on top of the Israel operation on the nuclear operations, on the nuclear expansion of Iran. And remember, Donald Trump did not brag about it. He just say, play cool, we're going to give you a week, you think about it, we see what we do. And he then went and bombed Iran. Now, after he bombed Iran, he goes to Vladimir Putin, little threat, and say, I'm also not playing games with you. And why do you need a missile to fly for 14 hours or 8,000 miles when I have submarine with nuclear missiles right next to you? So that message says to Vladimir Putin, if you want war, we're going to have war. Now, Vladimir Putin has to think twice before doing this. Now, all this power of Vladimir Putin, all the power of Xi Jinping was allowed to happen under the Democratic administration. And to an extent, even Donald Trump's first administration, he was not as mature, in my view, as he is now. But now, for the first time in a long time, the United States of America is seen as someone who is strong, who is able to take military action when necessary, and is now challenging, let's say, the dictatorship axis, which is Russia, China, and Iran. And I'm not saying that those are the dictatorship axis. I'm just saying the language that people use to describe those people. They're the first time being challenged by someone that they're afraid of, which is Donald Trump. He also making a new alliance with Japan. He's trying to push the Abrahamic Accords. Now, for the Democrats to create all this chaos out of hate and polarization, for hate of the guy, being unable to acknowledge anything positive that he has done and bring another Democrat that's going to project an America that's weak is not a good thing. Another thing that can happen, Donald Trump will not give in. People need to understand this. Donald Trump doesn't care about political correct. He doesn't care about threats. He makes threats. And here's the thing. He already spoke and people are not paying attention. He can increase the ceiling without the approval of Congress. And that is not being a dictator. There's a trick up his sleeve because he's a businessman. He understands business. He understands that the American government is a business. And as a business, you need to look how much assets you have and what your liabilities. Now, the greatest asset to the world is gold. Gold, which is the most reliable asset for over 5,000 years. The US has a lot of it. But what people don't realize is on the balance sheet of the US, the price of gold is the same price at the time that Nixon depegged the dollar from gold, which is about $40 per ounce. Now imagine this. The troy ounce of gold today is over $4,000. That is 100 times more. Donald Trump can simply order for gold to be placed on the balance sheet with the market value. Then the asset that the American government holds, which is gold, will go up in price 100x with one signature from Donald Trump. And with that, he's going to be able to pay what he believes to be important, and he's going to shut down or keep it laid off that which he thinks is not important. The Democrats, again, in my view, are making themselves as fools because eventually they have to come to terms and the government has to go back into operation. And if you believe Donald Trump doesn't have an argument or Speaker Johnson is speaking things that makes no sense, after watching both videos on its entirety, Speaker Johnson and Barack Obama in 2013 discussing the shutdown that occurred on his administration, I come to the conclusion that those politicians that are in power today are not interested in defending the interests of the country or the interests of the population that they serve. It seems like both parties have politicians that are engaged in social media attention. And that to me is very negative. Another thing which is very negative, and this is subject for another video, is how today the conflict between countries are not being discussed diplomatically. Social media tends to push us to acting not on the best version of ourselves. And that's why, to me, this shutdown is very different. The Democrats, in my view, are shooting themselves in the foot in the same way they did on the campaign. They are pushing for absurd things, and the American population better wake up and not endorse these things. In my view, they're going to lose their support the same way they have lost from very influential artists and people with media influence as they have lost on the previous campaign. Now, I really hope that this shutdown does not bring America to the point of defaulting on their debt, because if that happens, then we're going to have crossed a point of no return. I hope that the Democratic Party has enough sanity to stop the shutdown before that happens. All that's necessary, according to Speaker Johnson, is about 5 Democrats to vote for the end of the shutdown. Please, American politicians, I do not have a dog in this fight. Wake up to the consequence of your actions. Do what's right, not according to me, not according to Speaker Johnson, but according to Barack Obama himself. This is my opinion on this matter, at least a summary of it. Please do like this video, subscribe if you have not yet, and above all, share this video with someone else who can benefit from this. And do not forget, stay curious and stay hodling.